Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our House Appropriations Committee meeting. Clerk, we will take the roll now, please. All right, all 22 are present. Good afternoon. So to lighten the moment for me, I'm going to pretend that I'm at church delivering my sermon to you all today. How about that? Amen. I know that this is rather unconventional, but it's helpful for me, okay? All right, here we go. Are we on? Well, okay, good. Here we go. Good afternoon. Today we meet to adopt a package of amendments to House Bill 30, the biennium budget for FY 2026 through 2028 biennium. Over the past year, federal actions have created real gaps in healthcare funding, in workforce programs, in education support, and in the safety net that families rely on. Virginians should not be collateral damage of decisions made in Washington. This budget backfills those holes, not out of politics, but out of prudence. This budget before us today reflects a simple but serious responsibility. When forces beyond Virginia's control create uncertainty or instability, this body must step up to protect our people and our economy. We do this because a stable Commonwealth depends on continuity, on knowing that health care coverage won't disappear overnight, that students can finish their education, and that workers and families are not left scrambling to absorb sudden costs. But this budget is not just about filling gaps. At its core, this budget is about affordability and about whether Virginia is doing everything it can to help families not just survive, but build stable, secure lives. It is about confronting the affordability crisis that touches nearly every household in Virginia. Healthcare costs continue to rise faster than wages. Childcare remains out of reach for too many working families. Housing prices and rent strain first-time buyers, seniors, and essential workers alike. College tuition and student debt shape life decisions long before a young Virginian ever steps into the workforce. Affordability is not an abstract concept. It determines whether someone can take a better job, start a family, or remain in the community they call home. This budget makes targeted, responsible investment to ease those pressures by strengthening access to affordability, health care, supporting housing stability, expanding child care availability, and keeping higher ed within reach for the next generation. Affordability also means protecting workers. This budget reflects our commitment to fair pay, safe workplaces, and basic dignity on the job, because a strong economy depends on strong workers. And we do all this while honoring our commitment to physical discipline. This is a balanced budget. It is built on conservative revenue assumptions, maintains healthy reserves, and prepares us for continued uncertainty ahead. That balance matters because governing is not about choosing between compassion and responsibility. It is about delivering both. The work of the Appropriations Committee was guided by a clear principle. Government should help make life more affordable, more stable, and more predictable for the people who do everything right and still feels like they're falling behind. This budget does not solve every challenge, but it moves us in the right direction. It protects Virginians from sudden shock. It invests in people, and it reflects the values of a Commonwealth that believes opportunity should be real, not theoretical. I want to thank the committee, the members of the committee and staff for the long hours and serious collaboration that brought us here. I am proud of the work this committee has done. I look forward to moving forward with this budget that reflects our discipline and our commitment to all Virginians. I want to thank you, and at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Ann Oman to present the resource changes included in the overall package, and then we will move into consideration of the individual subcommittee reports. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. As the chairman indicated, I'll just spend just a couple moments going over the overall resources before we move into the committee reports themselves. Starting first with House Bill 29, which of course was signed by the governor on Friday. That increased general fund resources in the current fiscal year by $3.1 billion. This was driven largely by balances carried forward from FY 2025, about $1.75 billion of those. It also includes just over $1 billion increase in the forecast for the current year's revenue forecast and an increase in transfers. But as a net result of the spending that you approved in House Bill 29 and the savings identified there as well, there will be $2.3 billion going forward into the fiscal year that starts July 1, and that is propping up some of the spending in the next year's budget. As introduced, House Bill 30 includes $71.5 billion in general fund resources available for appropriation. It mirrors the GACRA forecast that was presented last fall, and basically it assumes continued economic growth, but at a very modest level. For each of the current year and the next 2 years of the biennium, you have assumed growth in the 3 to 3.5% range. Year to date, the Commonwealth has been doing far better than that. As you heard last week, your 6.9% growth over last year is well ahead of the forecasted growth of 3%. The adjustments included in the budget themselves, you'll see in the first block of numbers up there. These are FY 25 and 26 balances. Legislature tries to give up extra funds that it has not used, balances in the auxiliary grant program, and an updated forecast on the state racing operations fund. In terms of transfers, again, these are items you often pick up every year. The revolving trust fund at the Attorney General's office, by code, that amounts over $1.5 million flow through to the general fund. There is a capture of just under $80 million from the site acquisition fund that has been sitting out there since fiscal year 24, I believe. So we are using that to help spending needs in the upcoming biennium. A number of other balances throughout, as you can see there. In terms of revenue changes, the only changes relate to the federal tax conformity bill. Again, that was included in House Bill 29, so you've seen those numbers already. It picked you up just over $200 million in FY 2026, and you generate an additional $634 million for that. In the current biennium, it also eliminates the tax proposals that Governor Youngkin had included in his outgoing budget, picking up another $300 million there. You'll also see the assumed sale of state buildings, which had been under consideration the last couple of years, but it looks like they are reaching closure on contracts on the Monroe Building and 7th and Main property. There's also the recognition of revenues from the skill games legislation that was passed through the House. You'll see a smaller amount in the first year because of the does not go into effect until January 1 of next year, and then an amount that you could expect to see going forward if that legislation continues to move through the process of about $176 million per year thereafter. So at the bottom, you'll just see that there is about $1.8 billion in additional spending, and the budget is left with an unappropriated balance of $15.2 million at the end of the biennium. And with that, I can pass it off to Delegate McQuinn to present the public education report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is the report of the Subcommittee on Elementary and Secondary Education. Today, the Elementary and Secondary Education Subcommittee presents a budget focused on three core areas: ensuring stability for students, teachers, and the K-12 system, continuing our progress to provide more targeted supports, and providing families with affordable early childhood education options. In total, this budget invests $1.7 billion in additional funds to address these priorities, including fully funding the cost of rebenchmarking K-12 cost. School divisions today are facing tough choices and uncertainty due to federal actions, enrollment declines, and persistent teacher shortage. That is why we have included $400 million as a one-time flexible payment for school divisions to provide fiscal stability and meet local needs, whether that be continuing an effective tutoring program, funding school renovation, or tackling the teachers' recruitment challenges. This budget continued to build on our progress by providing targeted funds supporting, including a $160 million funding increase for students with disability, more than doubling last year's education investment, and allowing schools to give better support for students' greater needs. Finally, Mr. Chairman, our budget invests $160 million in early childhood education to create additional early childhood slots and to clear the wait list for child care and ensure all families with income below 85% of the state median income can access affordable child care. To stretch these funds further, the budget includes an innovative partnership with employers to share in the cost of child care, benefiting families and helping recruit talent for businesses. Mr. Chairman, we look forward to continuing our work of making investments that will benefit the Commonwealth for generations by lifting up families, students, and educators. And I hope it is the pleasure of the subcommittee to adopt this report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, as Delegate McQuinn stated, the House budget includes about $1.7 billion in additional funding. It's about $438 million for technical and rebenchmarking updates for the new biennium. And policy actions are listed here, a total about $1.25 billion, and I'll go in detail on these in later slides. For educator compensation, just a reminder that the caboose bill that was just signed into law included $117.6 million for the state's share of a $1,500 bonus, and it included flexibility for school divisions to extend this bonus either in the current fiscal year or in FY 2027. We also include the state share of 2% compensation increases. That's one in FY 27 and FY 28 for a total of $383 million over the biennium. $400 million is included for a flexible funding supplement for school divisions to address local challenges. The proposed distribution results in a 2% supplement in funding for most school divisions above the introduced budget. No local match is required to access the funds themselves. However, to access these funds, school divisions would be required to provide the 2% compensation increase that I discussed previously. We include $10 million in FY 2027 to supplement funding provided for CISNA. That's a program for students with intensive support needs. These funds support special ed students with the most complex service needs, and the budget further directs that the Department of Education should expand the eligibility to access these funds and analyze whether this is an effective strategy to offset rising CSA costs. There's also $148.4 million included over the biennium to more than double the special education add-on that you established last session. These funds supplement the standard funding provided to support special education. And this expansion differentiates the add-on to further recognize students with more expansive needs. There's a $127 million increase for the school construction grant program, bringing it to a total of $347 million in grants over the biennium from casino gaming revenues. And just to remind you, there's also this session, there's a bill with a 1% local option sales tax moving its way through. And that could leverage another $1.5 to $2 billion locally for school buildings if all school divisions were to opt in. And finally, we propose pausing literary fund loans due to a lack of interest from school divisions for this financing option, and it allows us to free up $172 million additionally to address teacher retirement costs. And finally, on early childhood, the House report increases support by $137 million over the biennium for child care slots for working families, making up to 85% of the state median. These funds address the birth to 5 wait list as of December 1st, and they include flexibility to carry funds forward to address program needs in the second year. And there's $25 million included for a child care cost sharing initiative among the state, parents, and employers. Because this program is decoupled from the federal child care subsidy program, this provides us an opportunity to explore eligibility that takes into account regional differences in cost of living and income.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the report.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt the elementary and secondary education report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Chairman, you have the report of the Health and Human Resources Subcommittee from Delegate Willett.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, our subcommittee had no easy feat, no easy task this year. While we've made historic investments in health and human services in recent years, we are faced with unprecedented challenges and pressures due to federal funding reductions and the funding requirements coming from the Medicaid program. This subcommittee knew we could not sit idly by while so many crucial programs for Virginians were being cut. This is why the subcommittee is recommending providing $79.1 million to hold down the monthly health insurance premiums for those between the levels of 138% and 200% of the federal poverty guidelines or levels. We are doing that in part to ensure that Virginians can access affordable health care even when the federal government is not stepping up. The subcommittee is also recommending $45 million to restore the federal reductions for core public health services within the Virginia Department of Health. This funding will go towards crucial programs such as communicable disease prevention and control, epidemiology, community health service support, and very significantly, backfilling reductions in the Ryan White Part B program for HIV services. In addition, we are providing $15.6 million to fully fund the Marcus Alert program for the remaining 13 community service boards to implement the program. Sadly, this funding was omitted from the introduced budget. Mr. Chairman, we are faced with funding pressure to support new costs in our SNAP program due to the passage of H.R. 1. We are proposing $152.8 million over the biennium to fund not just the increased state administrative cost in operating SNAP, but also to cover the increased cost localities will face. The subcommittee includes over $211 million to fund the new cost share in providing the SNAP benefit allotments, which will used to be fully funded by the federal government. While the amount the state will have to contribute depends on our error rate, we feel it is a prudent and responsible decision to act now and to budget for increased cost to make sure Virginians will have uninterrupted access to their food benefits. While ensuring affordable health care and mitigating federal reductions were a critical focus to our work, the subcommittee also concentrated on a few key health priorities. We recommended $10 million to shore up the health safety net by increasing funding to our free and charitable clinics. Further, we recommended continuing our investment in the maternal and child care health initiatives to improve the well-being of our moms and babies by providing $33.7 million in state funds. This funding restores prenatal coverage for pregnant and postpartum immigrant women in the FAMIS program, service which we have provided with full federal approval and support for the past 6 years. It also increases the reach of our maternal and infant home visiting program and expands remote patient monitoring by including pregnant women over 35 years old and providing postpartum care. In addition, we recommend funding for bills we passed this session to create a fetal and infant mortality review team and establish the severe maternal morbidity surveillance and review program. These two programs will provide critical information on how to better target prevention efforts in this area. The subcommittee also proposes $11.1 million in state funding for a robust sickle cell disease package to ensure individuals with this disease and their loved ones have access to critical support and services. Our amendments will provide Medicaid coverage for cell and gene therapy treatment at VCU and establish a sickle cell coordinated access network to link healthcare providers around the state with expert consultants in the treatment of sickle cell disease. We are recommending funding for a state-level sickle cell trait awareness and education program at the Health Department, as well as additional funding for pediatric and adult comprehensive sickle cell clinics. With these efforts, we are well positioned to make significant strides to combat this devastating disease. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the subcommittee also recognizes we are long overdue in providing serious investments and reform in our child welfare system. Even one child death from abuse and neglect is too many. We know Virginia can do better, which is why the subcommittee is recommending more than $39 million over the biennium to improve our child welfare system and child protective services. The subcommittee's report is contained within the attachments before you. Committee staff, who I again want to recognize for an incredible effort in pulling this all together, will review the report in more detail, and I hope it will be the committee's pleasure to adopt the report. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as Delegate Willett stated, the House budget includes $211 million in the second year to fund the new cost share and the SNAP benefit allotments. This is assuming our error rate will remain above 10%. As you remember, our current error rate is 11.5%. There's $65.5 million in the first year and $87.3 in the second to fund the increase in SNAP admin costs per H.R. 1, and this will fully fund the increased costs localities will have. There's also a little over $1 million each year and 14 positions to fund a SNAP quality assurance team to hopefully find and correct any payment errors before it can impact our state's error rate. There's also about $555,000 the first year and a little over $600,000 the second year to increase the salaries for SNAP quality control staff to be more in line with other positions in the agency. Lastly, there's $500,000 in the first year to fund a statewide food desert mapping tool to highlight any drivers of food insecurity in the Commonwealth. For child welfare, there's about $39.5 million over the biennium in various child welfare initiatives. I won't go into detail of all of them, but I will point out the largest of which being the centralized intake system for child protective services to collect all the reports of abuse and neglect for children. That's about $7.5 million the first year and $18.1 in the second year. Turning to CSA, there's $49.6 million general fund, $14 million non-general fund in the first year, and $86.5 million general fund and $16 million non-general fund in the second year to fund the CSA forecast. Due to the unsustainable growth in the program, there are a few cost containment strategies. There's savings of $10.8 million the first year and $11.8 in the second year to reduce the average state match rate for community-based services to 71%. There's savings of $3.4 million the first year and $3.7 in the second to limit the private day services growth rate to 2.5%. Lastly, there's also savings of $1.3 million general fund in the first year and $2.4 million general fund the second year to eliminate the automatic inflationary adjustments for residential treatment providers, and that savings is also captured in the Medicaid program.
Mr. Chairman, as Delegate Willett mentioned, the amendments contain several items and initiatives that the subcommittee adopted to mitigate federal and proposed state reductions. The largest of this is an amendment that provides $79.1 million in premium assistance for those purchasing health insurance on the state's health insurance exchange, and that will buy down premiums on average by about 70%. In addition, there's several amendments to restore funding that in proposed cuts to the Medicaid and FAMUS programs. That totals $63.1 million general fund and about $163 million non-general funds over the biennium. The first one is almost $30 million in state funding, matched with non-general funds to fully restore prenatal and postpartum coverage for immigrant women. That's a full restoration. There's also about $24 million in state funds, matched with non-general funds to partially restore behavioral health community stabilization services until new Medicaid behavioral health services are in place and come online in fiscal year 2027. And finally, there's about $9.6 million and non-general funds of about $10 million to restore applied behavioral analysis services for children that are age 5 and under to allow for a provisional diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And then finally, there are amendments that provide $45 million in core public health services in the Virginia Department of Health. Delegate Willett had mentioned what those are, and I'll just point out the Ryan White Act Part B program restoration does provide $13.2 million over the biennium. The amendments also continue progress on health priorities, as Delegate Willett indicated. 11.4 million general fund and 7.8 million non-general fund for the sickle cell disease initiatives that are listed in the packet there. And you can see the amounts for the sickle cell gene therapy treatment of about almost $14.8 million in total funds. There's $10 million that's included in your amendments for the free clinics, and about another $4.2 million and some non-general fund for the other maternal and child health initiatives. That's in addition to the amounts that are restoring the famous prenatal and postpartum care. I won't go through all those, but those bills are listed there as well for you. And then some of the other initiatives, there's about $59 million general fund in the first year and 66.5 non-general or general fund. I'm sorry, that's over the biennium for DD waiver rate increases. And then there's a small amount of general fund with a significant amount of non-general fund for the Cover Virginia Call Center, and eligibility operations will be key as we move forward with the HR 1 provisions in the next year. In the Department of Health, there's almost $15 million to complete and maintain the electronic health records that you started several years ago. And then in the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, there's $6 million in state funding for the local area agencies on aging that provide a lot of the services for the elderly in your communities. There's $3 million for vocational rehabilitation services, and that matches about $11 million in state vocational rehabilitation grant funding. And then finally, there's $2 million for community brain injury services. And then finally, there is some significant Medicaid savings that are also being recommended. The first one is a small amount of savings to implement the single pharmacy benefit manager for the Medicaid program. That reflects some startup costs to procure a PBM and implement the contract. There's requirements in the amendments for developing and awarding the contract and issuing the RFP and the contract. And there's more significant savings that will be projected in the next biennium from this effort. There's $9.7 million over the biennium from carving out 340B pharmacy claims from the Medicaid program. It requires institutional providers to forego the use of their 340B discounted drugs for Medicaid patients, allowing the Medicaid program to realize drug rebate savings for drugs provided to Medicaid patients. And then there's $30.3 million over the biennium by returning to 2025 managed care profit caps and underwriting gains in the program. And that completes the Health and Human Resources report.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the Health and Human Resources report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, Mr. Chairman, is the report of the Commerce, Agriculture, and Natural Resources Subcommittee from Delegate Creasy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The scope of the Commerce, Ag, and Natural Resources Subcommittee is extensive, with topics ranging from water quality to protecting workers to housing affordability. This year is no different. Our subcommittee considered every idea presented to us with a focus on creating a better quality life for Virginians, while at the same time practicing fiscal restraint. I'd like to highlight some of the key items included in the subcommittee report before you. In the area of labor, the subcommittee report contains significant investments to raise the minimum wage, provide paid sick leave for state workers, constitutional employees, and state-funded home health care workers, and allow these groups to collectively bargain. Over the biennium, these investments total $45.6 million. The subcommittee report includes substantial resources for the Department of Labor and Industry, which has been chronically underfunded, to better protect Virginia workers and enforce our state's labor laws, with $15.3 million in new resources over the biennium. Our subcommittee report addresses the housing affordability crisis. It uses a multifaceted approach that provides resources for construction-related projects, eviction prevention, and homelessness response efforts. The subcommittee report contains $25 million to capitalize a new fund focused on the development of mixed-income housing. It also brings the Virginia Housing Trust Fund to a total of $187.5 million over the biennium, which is its highest funding level to date. The subcommittee report helps families facing eviction by investing $16.9 million over the biennium in the Virginia Eviction Reduction Program. Subcommittee report also includes more than $677 million in water quality-related investments to continue the Commonwealth's robust and long-standing support for improving the health of the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries. This historic investment includes $329 million for wastewater treatment plant improvements, $254 million for non-point source pollution reductions, including agricultural best management practices, $50 million to support state-mandated improvements to the Richmond Combined Sewer Overflow Improvement Project, and nearly $44 million, Mr. Chairman, to support local stormwater system improvements across the Commonwealth. Our subcommittee report is included in the materials before the committee, and at this time, I'll ask staff to review the report in greater detail with the members. I hope it will be the pleasure of the committee to adopt the report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Starting out, to reiterate Delegate Krizik's remarks, there's a significant amount of new money included in the subcommittee report to address housing affordability and homelessness reductions efforts for a total just over $73 million over the biennium. This includes a one-time investment in FY27 for the Virginia Housing Trust Fund. Again, as Delegate Krizik said, that brings total biennial investment in the trust fund to $187.5 million over the biennium. The trust fund does two things. It addresses construction, affordable housing construction, as well as homelessness reduction efforts and support for community organizations. Additionally, you have an additional $14 million to address rapid rehousing efforts and then strengthen the organizational efforts of Virginia's local communities addressing homelessness. This brings up support from their current $1.8 million in each year of the biennium in each year. Additionally, Delegate Krizik mentioned you have a one-time investment in FY27 for a new housing revolving loan fund. That's $25 million. And then lastly, you have one-time investment of funds into the Virginia Eviction Reduction Program. It's currently funded at $3.5 million in each year. We have the subcommittee report includes state costs to fund several major labor initiatives that total just over $45 million over the biennium. It includes $20 million in startup capital to allow state employees and home health workers to collectively bargain, as well as it funds the state costs for increasing the minimum wage with $14.5 million over the biennium and strengthening the state's paid sick leave policy with just over $11 million provided in fiscal year 28. As Delegate Krizik mentioned, the subcommittee report invests significant resources in the Department of Labor and Industry to hire new staff and build new IT systems to enforce bills under consideration by the General Assembly. This support totals just over $15 million over the biennium. The subcommittee report also fully funds the state's commitments to economic development projects with $58 million over the biennium for what's often referred to as MEI-approved economic development projects. And finally, in the area of life sciences research, the subcommittee reports recommends to continue making investments in 3 life science research efforts at the University of Virginia for the Virginia Institute of Biotechnology, with additional $6 million in fiscal year 27, Virginia Tech's Patient Research Center with an additional $6 million in fiscal year 27 for that effort, and then Virginia Commonwealth University's Medicines for All Institute with an additional $3 million in FY27. Next, I'll turn it over to David Reynolds.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, moving on to water quality items. At DCR, the subcommittee report supports a total of $252 million the first year for deposit in the Water Quality Improvement Fund. This is for the non-point source pollution part of the equation. Of this amount, just under $243 million is going to the Natural Resources Commitment Fund, and this would support ag BMPs both within and outside the Chesapeake Bay watershed, as well as technical assistance provided by the Soil and Water Conservation District offices. $2 million has also been earmarked for the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program. At DEQ, just under $330 million in the first year is deposited for the state share of wastewater treatment plant improvements. This is an increase of just under $190 million over the introduced budget just to meet the needs assessment. So this was a fairly big hole in HB 30 as it was introduced. $50 million has been added as Chairman Krizek mentioned, to support the Richmond CSO project, and $44 million has been provided to support SLAF and provide grants for municipal MS4 improvements. At DEQ, there are a number of smaller items. This includes support for PFAS monitoring, as well as a PFAS disposal alternatives analysis, and then funding in the first year to support 3 studies listed here on this slide. Other natural resources spending actions, there's funding in the first year to support the non-federal match of an Army Corps study at Chickateague Inlet. There's a first-year uptick at DWR to support the costs of their 2% salary increase for staff. At DHR, there's $5.8 million to support 9 different Virginia historic and cultural attractions, as well as a $2 million plus up for the BIPOC fund and support for 2 positions to help address the department's easement backlog. For ag and forestry agencies, there's $4 million in the first year, and this will be used to support the agricultural food assistance program, as well as Virginia Fresh Match. And there's also $2 million over the biennium that's been included to support a number of House bills. And finally, at the Department of Forestry, there's $500,000 over the biennium to backfill 2 positions that have historically been supported by federal funds. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the subcommittee report.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the report of the Commerce, Agriculture, and Natural Resources Subcommittee.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the report of the Commerce, Agriculture, and Natural Resources Committee. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman, next up is the report of the Higher Education Subcommittee from Delegate Carr.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the subcommittee's recommendations today reflect the committee's consistent goals of increasing access for Virginia students, providing affordable pathways to high-quality post-secondary degrees and credentials, and improving their job opportunities. Mr. Chairman, this subcommittee has attempted over the years to address the issue of college affordability. In fact, since 2019, average tuition costs, after accounting for inflation, have dropped nearly 11% at our four-year institutions and about 15% at our community colleges. To maintain that progress, the subcommittee recommends $211.3 million over the biennium to restore funding the legislature provided last session, which was not continued in the introduced budget. This will allow our colleges to address the coming biennium without having to fill a budgetary hole from the current fiscal year. Making affordable assets to all Virginians is our top priority. It's what our students, families, and business leaders expect. Regarding affordable pathways, Mr. Chairman, the subcommittee recommends two major investments directed at our community colleges. First, we recommend an additional $32.5 million for workforce credential grants. Second, we recommend $30 million for expansion of career technical education programs. Mr. Chairman, these investments will open doors to opportunities, especially in the healthcare sector, for over 18,000 Virginians. Mr. Chairman, when coupled with the progress being made in the Internship Virginia Initiative through Virginia Economic Development Partnership, we are improving job opportunities for Virginia students, reflecting the value of higher education's partnership with our business community. Finally, Mr. Chairman, our recommendations also include $9.6 million to support the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant Program, $9.6 million to continue support for upgrades to academic, administrative, and financial systems, and a total of $16 million at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, the extensions at Virginia Tech and Virginia State, and higher education centers. Mr. Chairman, details of our subcommittee recommendations are attached. Committee staff will review our report and the attached listing of our recommendations in greater detail, and I hope it will be the pleasure of the committee to adopt them.
The higher education report, Mr. Chairman, colleges and the universities, there's $276 million over the biennium. A little over half of that is dollars that are dedicated to affordable access and tuition moderation. There's a $50.6 million for workforce development. Again, a little over half of that is at the community colleges for the career technical education focused on healthcare, as well as expansion of the nursing programs at JMU, Mary Washington, and Radford. And then there's funding at the Virginia Tech Medical School to help for the in-state seats. There's funding of $50 million at the HBCU partnerships with Virginia Union and Hampton University, $15 million for undergraduate financial aid. As Delegate Carr mentioned, there's $9.6 million for the administrative, academic, and the financial systems, and about $18.3 million for individual institution-specific type initiatives. At VIMS and Extension, there's VIMS at $3.7 million. $2 million of that is related to the Menhaden research study. There's $1 million each at the two extension agencies. At the higher education centers, there's $7.1 million. For New College, there are a couple of changes there. The House Bill 430 will change the name of that to the West Piedmont Higher Education Center. We do restore the second-year funding, which was eliminated once again. And there's also funding where we transfer the fiscal agent responsibility from the community colleges to the new college related to the Philpott Manufacturing Gen Edge. And then there's some smaller amounts of money for the other centers, and then the GoTech initiative at $4.7 million. Lastly, at Chev, $46 million over the biennium. A little over half of that, or almost three-quarters of that, rather, is for the workforce credential grants. $6 million to maintain the TAG award at 5250. There is funding, again, for the Hispanic Serving Institution at the 1.8 per year, funding for stipends for the VIMSDEP in the second year. There's some additional funding for Virginia University at Lynchburg, $1 million a year for student grants. The virtual library gets a small amount of money, and then there is some balancing of the internship funding between VEDP and State Council. Lastly, in some of the major items, mentioned the Menhaden study. There's language for George Mason to partner with Averett University, George Mason taking over the state climatologist. There's language for Mary Washington to plan to look at doing a healthcare initiative with Mary Washington Hospital. It's a plan only. You're not committed to anything there. A couple of more attempts at out-of-state tuition flexibility, clarification at the foster grants, and then one more attempt at Richard Bland's Level 2 pilot authority.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the report of the Higher Education Subcommittee.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the report of the Higher Education Subcommittee. All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, next up is the report of the Transportation and Public Safety Subcommittee with Delegate Reed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. On behalf of the Transportation and Public Safety Subcommittee, I'm pleased to present our budget recommendations. For the Transportation Secretariat, the subcommittee recommendations will result in total funding for the 2026-28 biennium of more than $23.3 billion. This is an increase of almost $500 million over the final budget for the 2024-2026 biennium included in House Bill 29. This increased investment in the Commonwealth's transportation infrastructure is possible because of our deliberate actions in recent years to ensure that there are adequate dedicated revenue streams to support our growing transportation needs. The subcommittee recommendations include general fund resources of approximately $165 million, including $153 million from the general fund for increased operating support for the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority over the biennium. While the large dollar recommendations often get the most attention in our budget recommendations, other amendments can and often do make a positive impact across the Commonwealth. Included in our package is an amendment to provide $300,000 to support studying the future of public transit and Hampton roads, created pursuant to the House Joint Resolution 28, patroned by Delegate Askew, and a language amendment requesting that the Secretary of Transportation evaluate options to accelerate projects included in the Interstate 81 Corridor Improvement Program. These amendments highlight the broad scope of addressing transportation issues in urban, suburban, and rural areas across our Commonwealth. In the area of public safety, the subcommittee report includes a targeted investment to expand the Safer Communities program to the 5 additional localities. With this additional support, the 9 localities experiencing the greatest level of gun violence will now have access to the funding, expertise, and programs necessary to build robust and responsive community violence intervention programs that can help their communities flourish. The subcommittee report also supports the Commonwealth's efforts to join the growing list of states that have established well-regulated, adult-use retail cannabis markets. To this end, the report includes $39 million in non-general fund over the biennium for the Cannabis Control Authority to ensure adults have access to safe, legal products outside the influence of the black market. With that, Mr. Chairman, the subcommittee report is now before you and the members of the committee. I hope it'll be the committee's pleasure to adopt the subcommittee's report. Michael J. and David Reynolds will now provide the committee with additional details on the recommendations included in the report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. In the area of transportation, the subcommittee recommendations includes $153 million in additional operating support for WMATA, $7 million for to complete a project related to the Coalfields Expressway in Southwest Virginia, and $2 million to finish the project design for the inland port in Washington County. For the NGF spending amendments, there is $10 million earmarked from the Transportation Partnership Opportunity Fund for the demolition of an empty vacant parking garage at the Huntington Metro Rail Station. This is contingent on local or regional funds being identified to complete the project. There's a $1 million transfer from the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund to continue support for advanced air aviation test sites. And then the next slide just shows the significant language amendments related to transportation. 2 of them in the Secretary's office, one for the 81 to accelerate the 81 projects, and one is to study reciprocity with Maryland, D.C. related to registering out-of-state vehicles and tickets. That's the main issues in transportation.
Next, moving to the Department of Corrections, there's just under $60 million over the biennium to reflect the increased cost of providing health care and medical services to inmates in state correctional centers. There's $2.2 million over the biennium to support full rollout of body cameras at the maximum security facilities, Red Onion and Wallens Ridge. There's $2.4 million over the biennium to reflect the fiscal impact of approximately 24 House bills that passed before crossover. At the parole board, there's $1.9 million over the biennium to reflect two pieces of House legislation, as well as $1.5 million in the first year to support 4 local jail renovation and upgrade projects that have been approved by the board. At state police, there's $81 million over the biennium to address ongoing operational and personnel costs. There is language establishing some new financial reporting requirements for the department. The goal here is to ensure that next session, the General Assembly has the information and knowledge it needs to ensure that the department's base appropriation is sufficient to meet its ongoing needs in the future. There's $9.3 million each year to support the ongoing cost of the department's VITA transformation process, as well as $800,000 to support the House legislation listed here at the bottom of the slide. At DCJS, there's $10 million increase each year for the Safer Communities program. This will support the expansion of the program to 5 additional localities. That's Danville, Hampton, Hopewell, Newport News, and Petersburg. With this expansion, the 9 localities in Virginia which account for the majority of gun violence in the state will now be eligible. In the interest of streamlining community violence programs, both administratively as well as grant funding wise, there is language that eliminates the Operation Ceasefire grant program. $6 million each year has been included to continue backfilling reductions in federal support for SA and DV programs, and $2.9 million each year to support increased funding for the court-appointed Special Advocates Program for the first time since 2008. Mr. Chairman, that completes the subcommittee report.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the report of the Transportation and Public Safety Subcommittee.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the Transportation and Public Safety Subcommittee report. All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman, next up is the report of the General Government and Capital Outlay Subcommittee with Delegate Hayes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to present to you the General Government and Capital Outlay Subcommittee report and recommendations. Mr. Chairman, the budget before you today continues the House's steadfast commitment to reinvigorating and modernizing our existing capital assets. Mr. Chairman, we commit nearly 75% of the biennial's $2 billion in the general fund investment towards improving and preserving the buildings and facilities that we already have. This is going to ensure that they not only remain functional and efficient today, but they were going to be prepared for our future. Mr. Chairman, by making these strategic capital investments, we are not only protecting Virginia's historic character, but also transforming our facilities for the modern era. This is going to create spaces that meet the needs of today's workforce and the citizens we serve. This is important work, Mr. Chairman. Ultimately, this budget is not about building and bricks and mortar. It's about the people. And when our facilities are ready and we remain agile, we open new possibilities for our college students. We create safer and more secure environments, at our institutions, and we prioritize public safety, health, and welfare. We help ensure Virginia remains at the forefront of delivering the high-quality public services our citizens not only expect, but that they deserve. Mr. Chairman, Virginians today are also facing uncertainty created by short-sighted federal decisions. With this budget, however, we pivot from being at the mercy of those short-sighted decisions at the federal level to being prepared here in the Commonwealth. Right off the top, Mr. Chairman, we dedicate $200 million to a contingency reserve fund to backfill potential future federal cuts if they should so occur. Simply put, what's going on in Washington will not keep Virginia from offering the programs and services that define who we are as a Commonwealth. And Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to call up Ms. Andrea Peaks to walk the committee through the detailed budget recommendations, and then I hope it's the will of the body to adopt our subcommittee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Capital Outlay and General Government Subcommittee report. There's $2.0 billion in general fund support in this budget. $884 million is general fund cash, and $1 billion, a little over $1 billion is debt. You all created this budget by reprioritizing $100 million in projects that you prioritized, and still were able to save $6 million from what came over in the introduced. Highlight, $1.4 billion of the general fund is for one construction pool that has 14 projects in it, the majority of which are for higher education. There's $400 million for maintenance reserve that's in the first year. Y'all added $33 million to continue construction of a new state agency building that the House wants to include a child care center for state employees at the seat of government. You put in $25 million to begin installing HVAC in prisons that are currently without, and you added FF&E for a project at NSU, as well as increased funding to address deferred maintenance at higher ed. Over 70% of the general fund spending went back into our existing buildings. So this keeps with the prioritization that you all have had the last couple years, where we're looking to invest in what we already have. The other majorities went to higher ed for spending, and also towards projects in the pipeline, which shows a commitment to the process. Other notable capital, just point out, the planning pool only had 6 projects in it, 4 of which are for institutions of higher ed, 2 at William & Mary, 1 at UVA, and 1 at UVA-Wise. And then the House budget includes language to ensure that projects do move promptly and swiftly through the process to avoid any unnecessary cost overruns. So in the event a project owner does delay, they are either responsible for paying the cost that's responsible to the delay, or for working to reduce the scope. And other general fund highlights for general government part of the budget, your budget includes $200 million, $75 million the first year and $125 million the second, as Delegate Hayes was saying, so that the state stands ready in the event of future federal cuts. The language around those dollars does retain General Assembly approval of any recommended or requested funding allocations. Finally, you all give $75 million to the court system, and then $12.5 million to augment operations at the Office of the Attorney General. So that is the General Government Capital Outlay report.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the report of the General Government and Capital Outlay Subcommittee. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the report of the General Government and Capital Outlay Subcommittee. All those in favor?
Aye. Last but not least, Mr. Chairman, the report of the Compensation Retirement Subcommittee from Delegate Askew.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. On behalf of the Compensation and Retirement Subcommittee, I'm very pleased to present to you our budget recommendations. First, I'd like to thank the chairman for his support and guidance during this session. The subcommittee recommendations today build upon the work the committee has done over the last several sessions. Heading into the 26 to 28 biennium, we have provided funding for salary increases for our employees, including our state employees, state-supported local employees, and our SOQ funded positions for 5 consecutive years, beginning with the fiscal year 2022. While it seems that this should be the norm, I can assure you historically it has not been. I'm very happy to report our subcommittee recommendations, along with those of the K-12 subcommittee, include $786 million to provide a 2% salary increase in each year of the biennium for all employee groups, which will extend the string of 7 consecutive years. Providing increases for an annual basis is vital to ensure our employees' compensation package is competitive with a market inadequate to attract and retain employees who provide necessary services to our citizens. In the area of employee benefits, the subcommittee spent a significant amount of effort reviewing the financial status of the state employee health insurance program. As you're aware, Mr. Chairman, for the last 3 biennium, there have been minimal increases in the state employee health insurance premiums based on significant cash balances in the state employee health insurance fund. Over the past 2 years to be specific, we have experienced a significant increase in expenditures, driven largely by an increase in pharmacy costs consistent with other health insurance programs. This has resulted in a substantial decrease in the fund's cash balances. To address this issue, the subcommittee recommendations include a one-time direct general fund deposit into the fund at the beginning of the fiscal year 2027 for $80 million, as well as $243 general fund over the biennium to fund a 12.96% premium increase in the first year and a 5% increase in the second year. These actions will ensure the cash balances in the fund remain at an appropriate level. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the subcommittee for their hard work this session, and especially thank analyst Michael J. Mr. Chairman and fellow committee members, I will ask staff to take you through our recommendations, and then I hope it will be the pleasure of the subcommittee or the committee to adopt the report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. On the first slide just shows the funding for the 2% salary increases in each year of the biennium for teachers, SRQ funded positions, as well as state employees and state supported local employees. It's $254 million the first year and $532 million the second. The next slide shows the funding included for the State Employee Health Insurance Fund, the $80 million lump sum payment at the beginning of the biennium, and then $99 million the first year and $144 the second year for the premium increases. The next slide just shows other amendments within the subcommittee report. There's $3.5 million each year for a compression adjustment for attorneys at the Office of the Attorney General's to make them comparable to other lawyers throughout the public sector system. There is $2.1 million to increase legislative salaries after the next Senate election effective January of 2028. And there's a $500,000 for DHRM to modernize the job classification system for the state employees. The last slide just shows the legislation that was funded in the subcommittee recommendations. There's $2 million for HB 393 to provide cancer screenings for firefighters. And this, the remaining funding is $800,000 for 4 other bills that were passed by the committee and the House.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the report of the Compensation and Retirement Subcommittee. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the report of the Compensation and Retirement Subcommittee. All those in favor?
Aye. I move to adopt the House Bill 30 as amended. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt House Bill 30 with amendments. Yeah, this is going to be a recorded vote. HB 30 with amendments is adopted at a vote of 22-0. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.